Josephine Reed's loud buttons clicked against the marble floors of her Manhattan penthouse as she prepared for what should have been the happiest day of her pregnancy. The baby shower, meticulously planned at the Plaza Hotel, would showcase everything she had built with her husband Vincent, tech billionaire, venture capitalist wunderkind, and father to the daughter growing inside her. At 33, Josephine had achieved everything she dreamed of since leaving her small Pennsylvania hometown. Her career as an art curator had flourished, connecting emerging artists with wealthy collectors, until Vincent Reed had swept her into his world of private jets and Michelin-starred restaurants 3 years ago. She adjusted the delicate silk of her custom Vera Wang maternity gown, designed to drape perfectly over her 7-month belly. The enormous windows framed Central Park like a living painting, spring blossoms dotting the landscape 60 floors below. "Mrs. Reed?" Her assistant Rachel appeared in the doorway, face unnaturally pale. "There's something you need to see." Phone Rachel handed her displayed a page 6 headline. Tech Titans Tokyo. Trip troubles. Vincent Reed caught in Maldives with marketing director while pregnant wife prepares for baby shower. Beneath were photos Vincent on a private beach with Natalia Winters, his company's marketing director. Vincent feeding Natalia tropical fruit on a yacht. Vincent kissing Natalia in a cabana, her brown skin gleaming against white sheets. The timestamps showed yesterday. "He told me he was in Tokyo closing the SoftBank deal," Josephine whispered, her voice hollow as the penthouse suddenly seemed to tilt around her. "There's more," Rachel said, scrolling down. Natalia's Instagram, posted an hour ago. The image showed Natalia's hand sporting a massive emerald ring, Vincent's grandmother's emerald, which he'd promised would one day go to their daughter. The caption read, "Sometimes the second chance is the real beginning. #new chapter #future Mrs. Reed." A sharp pain lanced through Josephine's abdomen. She gasped, clutching the marble countertop. "Mrs. Reed, should I call an ambulance?" Rachel's voice seemed distant. "No," Josephine managed. "Call Dr. Barrett. Tell her what's happening." Another contraction seized her. "And call Vincent. Tell him his wife is having contractions while he's proposing to his mistress." The next hours blurred together. Dr. Barrett arrived, administered medication to stop the premature labor. Rachel fielded calls from party guests, the event planner, and increasingly reporters. Josephine's phone buzzed incessantly with Vincent's calls until she blocked his number. By evening, her mother had arrived from Pennsylvania, her face etched with worry. "Oh, Josie," she whispered, holding her daughter as Josephine finally allowed herself to collapse into tears. "He never went to Tokyo," Josephine sobbed. "He was with her the whole time. And now he's giving her his grandmother's ring, the one he promised would be for our daughter." Her mother stroked her hair, the way she had when Josephine was small. "Men like Vincent Reed don't know the value of what they have until they lose it." "I gave him everything," Josephine whispered. "My career, my independence." "No," her mother said firmly. "You put those things on pause. There's a difference." The doorbell rang, and Rachel returned with a thick manila envelope. "It's from Mr. Reed's attorneys." Inside was a separation agreement. Vincent was offering a one-time settlement of $5 million, a pittance compared to his billions, contingent on her immediate departure from the penthouse, full custody to be determined after birth, and a comprehensive NDA preventing her from discussing the marriage or the circumstances of its dissolution. A handwritten note was attached. "Josephine, this is generous considering the prenup. Take it and leave quietly. The alternative will be public and painful." "Volt, he wants me to disappear," Josephine said, a cold clarity replacing her tears. "He wants to erase me like I never existed." When Vincent finally appeared at midnight, Josephine was waiting in the living room, the settlement papers untouched on the coffee table. "You're not even denying it," she said. looking at the man she had believed would grow old with her. "It just happened, Joe," Vincent said, his handsome face arranged in practiced contrition. "Natalia and it wasn't planned." "The photos are dated over the last 3 months," Josephine replied. "That's not just happened. That's a relationship. You've been so focused on the baby. Don't you dare," she hissed. "Don't you dare blame our child for your betrayal." Vincent's facade cracked. "Sign the papers, Josephine. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be." She looked at him, really looked at the man she had loved. "You know what I see now, Vincent? A small, frightened man hiding behind money and lawyers." "I'll destroy you," he said quietly. "You'll leave New York with nothing." Josephine placed a protective hand over her belly. Not nothing, and not destroyed. She stood, the pain in her heart crystallizing into something harder, something unbreakable. "You've started a war. You don't know how to fight." 6 months had passed since Josephine's world imploded. Now she sat in her childhood bedroom in her parents' modest Ox County home, rocking 3-month-old Lily in the pre-dawn darkness. The room felt both like sanctuary and prison-fated. Tennis trophies and framed college diplomas standing witness to a life she barely recognized as her own. The birth had been difficult. Vincent hadn't attended, sending instead a junior attorney with paperwork. That final cruelty had hardened something in Josephine's core. She'd named their daughter Lily, not Olivia as they'd planned. Vincent had been furious his mother's name was Olivia. Good, Josephine had thought. Let him feel a fraction of what she felt. "You're the only good thing that came from all of this," she whispered to her sleeping daughter, tracing the perfect curve of her cheek. That the legal battle had been savage. Vincent had deployed his considerable resources, like tactical strikes, freezing joint accounts, challenging her prenuptial provisions, and intimidating potential employers with veiled threats of litigation. Josephine had been forced to sell her jewelry, her designer wardrobe, everything of value to fund her legal defense. The settlement, when it finally came, was barely enough to secure a small apartment and cover Lily's needs for a year. Vincent had managed to wipe away a decade of her career advancement and financial security in 6 brutal months. Downstairs, she heard her father preparing for his morning class at the local community college. Her mother would be up soon, ready to take Lily while Josephine attended yet another fruitless job interview. At 33, with a resumed gap and a high-profile scandal attached to her name, Josephine had become unemployable in the New York art world. She placed Lily in her crib and moved to the small desk by the window. Her laptop glowed in the darkness, open to a spreadsheet of dwindling funds and mounting expenses. Beside it lay a notebook filled with increasingly desperate ideas for rebuilding her life. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. She shouldn't look. She knew better. But her finger tapped the notification before her brain could stop it. Reed Winter's wedding set for spring. Tech billionaire and marketing exec expecting. The accompanying photo showed Vincent and Natalia at a gala, her hand resting protectively over a small bump. Natalia wore the emerald ring and a triumphant smile. Josephine closed her eyes, breathing through the pain. 6 months ago, this would have destroyed her. Now it simply fueled her determination. Her gaze fell on the care package her former assistant, Rachel, had sent after Lily's birth organic nipple cream, a cashmere nursing cardigan, lactation cookies that actually tasted good, and a moisturizing mask specifically formulated for sleep-deprived skin. It had been the first thing in months that made Josephine feel seen, not as a victim or a mother, but as a woman struggling to maintain her identity through transformation. She picked up the empty box, turning it over in her hands. Rachel's note was still inside, because new mothers deserve luxury too. Something sparked in Josephine's mind. She grabbed her notebook, pen flying across the page as the idea took shape. What if she created luxury care packages specifically for postpartum women? Not the useless plastic gadgets and saccharine platitudes of typical baby shower gifts, but thoughtfully curated items that address the physical and emotional needs of women undergoing the seismic shift of new motherhood. She thought of her art curator days, how she developed an eye for connecting the right piece with the right collector. She could apply those same skills here, sourcing artisanal products from small female-owned businesses, creating an experience that felt both indulgent and essential. By the time her mother knocked softly on the door, Josephine had filled 10 pages with ideas, potential products, pricing strategies. "Another interview today?" her mother asked, lifting a now-awake Lily from her crib. "No," Josephine said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "I'm canceling it. I have a better idea." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "Care to share?" Josephine handed her the notebook. As her mother read, her expression shifted from concern to interest. "You'll need startup capital," she said finally, "and connections to these small businesses." "I still have some contacts," Josephine replied. "And Rachel, my former assistant, she's been looking for a way out of working for Vincent's company since everything happened." "This won't be easy," her mother warned. "Vincent has made sure of that." Josephine looked at Lily, now contentedly nestled in her grandmother's arms. "Easy isn't the point anymore, Mom. Building something that's mine, something he can't take away, that's the point." That afternoon, Josephine registered the domain name for Maternal Phoenix, a company dedicated to the rebirth of women through motherhood. As she sketched the logo, a stylized mother and child within a rising flame, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. "Absolutely not," said the fourth investor, closing his portfolio with a decisive snap. "The market for luxury postpartum products is too niche, and frankly, Miss Red, your personal situation creates ... complications." Josephine maintained her professional smile, though inside she was seething. This was Vincent's doing. She was certain of it. 2 months of pitching her business plan, and every potential investor in Philadelphia had suddenly developed cold feet. "Thank you for your time," she said, gathering her presentation materials. The man didn't even stand as she left. Outside, in the bitter December cold, Josephine allowed herself exactly 10 seconds of despair before straightening her shoulders and walking to the coffee shop where Rachel waited. "No luck?" Rachel asked, sliding a cappuccino across the table. "Same story," Josephine sighed. "They love the concept until they hear my name." Rachel, who had quit Vincent's company to join Josephine's venture, looked thoughtful. "Maybe we're approaching this wrong. The old boys club clearly isn't going to help us. We need money, Rachel. The product samples and website have nearly depleted my settlement." "What about Dr. Morrison?" Rachel suggested. "Your pregnancy specialist. Didn't you say she left her practice to focus on research?" Dr. Olivia Morrison had been more than Josephine's OBGYN. She'd been a rock during the scandal in birth, even testifying during the custody hearings about Vincent's absence and Josephine's exemplary prenatal care. Olivia's focused on her research. Now, something about plant-based healing compounds for postpartum recovery. Rachel's eyes widened. "Joe, do you hear yourself? That's exactly what we need for the boxes." 24 hours later, Josephine sat in Olivia Morrison's laboratory at Drexel University, watching the researcher examine the prototype Maternal Phoenix box. "The concept is brilliant," Olivia said, testing the texture of a shea butter balm. "But these formulations are commercial grade at best. The women who can afford your price point will expect pharmaceutical grade efficacy with organic luxury." "That's exactly the problem," Josephine admitted. "I can source beautiful packaging and decent products, but I don't have the scientific expertise to create truly effective formulations." Olivia studied her for a long moment. "What if you did?" "What are you suggesting?" "A partnership," Olivia said simply. "I have research grants, but no commercial application. You have the business model and design sensibility, but need proprietary products to differentiate from potential competitors." "You'd want equity," Josephine said cautiously. 30%, Olivia confirmed. "And final approval on any formulation that carries my name." 25%, Josephine countered. "With exclusive first rights to any postpartum applications." "Of your research," Olivia smiled. "I've always admired your negotiation skills." Deal. With Olivia's backing, Maternal Phoenix secured its first round of funding from a women-focused investment group. 3 months of intense development followed midnight strategy sessions with Rachel, weekends in Olivia's lab perfecting formulations, hours on the phone with ethical suppliers while Lily napped. The night before their official launch, Josephine received a cease and desist letter from Vincent's attorneys, claiming the business name, Phoenix, infringed on a subsidiary of his company. "He named a subsidiary Phoenix Innovations last month," Rachel reported after making some calls. "It's a shell company with no actual business activity. He's trying to stop us before we even start," Josephine said, pacing her small apartment. "Living room. He can't stand the idea of me building something without him." Olivia, who had come over to celebrate the website launch, laughed unexpectedly. "He's scared." "Of what?" Josephine asked. "Of you," Olivia said simply. "Men like Vincent, they need to destroy what they can't control." Josephine stared at the legal letter, a plan forming. "Then let's change the name. Not because he's forcing us, but because we choose to." By morning, Maternal Phoenix had become Rebirth Collective, with a press release explaining the change as an evolution reflecting the company's mission to support women's rebirth through life transitions. The story was picked up by several women's magazines, creating more pre-launch publicity than their limited marketing budget could have ever achieved. "He did us a favor," Josephine told Rachel as they watched the first 100 orders come through on launch day. "He's still playing chess, thinking several moves ahead. But I'm not playing chess anymore." "What are you playing?" Rachel asked. Josephine thought of the months of poverty and humiliation, of Vincent's smug certainty that she would fade away. "I'm playing Phoenix," she said, "and the only rule is to rise." "Ms. Reed, they're ready for you." Josephine nodded to the assistant, adjusted her blazer, and entered the conference room of Femme Capital, the largest women-focused venture fund on the East Coast. 18 months after launching Rebirth Collective, she was presenting their expansion plan for Series B funding. The company had grown exponentially, expanding from postpartum care boxes to products supporting women through all major life transitions: menopause, divorce, career changes, empty nesting. Their proprietary formulations, developed by Olivia, had gained cult status among celebrities and were being studied for their exceptional effectiveness in reducing inflammation and promoting cellular regeneration. "Ladies," Josephine began, her confidence unwavering as she addressed the panel of investors. "Rebirth Collective isn't just selling products. We're selling recognition of women's invisible transitions." 90 minutes later, she walked out with a commitment for $12 million in funding. Outside the Manhattan skyscraper, she allowed herself a moment of pure, uncomplicated joy before calling Rachel. "We got it," she said simply. "Never doubted you for a second," Rachel replied. "Olivia's already popping champagne in the lab. How soon can you get back to Philadelphia?" "I'm staying in New York tonight," Josephine said. "I have that photo shoot for Forbes tomorrow morning." "Forbes 40 under 40, Rachel mused. "Vincent must be thrilled." Josephine laughed. Vincent's attempts to undermine her business had become increasingly desperate as Rebirth Collective gained prominence. His latest tactic, pressuring retailers not to carry their products, had backfired spectacularly when several major chains publicly committed to supporting women-owned businesses. "I'm sending a car to take you to dinner," Rachel said. "The reservation's under your name. Celebrate, boss. You've earned it." The restaurant was one of those hidden Manhattan gems, an unmarked door leading to a lush interior garden. As Josephine followed the host to her table, she noticed a man photographing the architectural details of the space. He was tall, with unruly dark hair and intense focus as he adjusted his camera settings. When he looked up and caught her watching, he smiled apologetically. "Sorry," he said. "I promise I'm not some creepy guy photographing women at dinner. I'm documenting historic interior spaces for a book. The original Beaux-Arts molding is quite exceptional," Josephine replied, nodding toward the ceiling. His eyebrows rose in surprise. "You know architecture?" "I was an art curator in another life," she said. "Josephine Reed." "Daniel Mercer," he replied, extending his hand. His grip was warm and solid. "Wait Rebirth Collective? My sister swears your postpartum recovery kit saved her sanity." Josephine smiled. "That's always nice to hear. I'm finishing up," Daniel said. "Would you mind if I joined you? I'd love to hear how you develop the concept. My next book focuses on spaces of transformation." 2 hours later, they were still talking. Daniel was divorced, a professional architectural photographer who taught part-time at Pratt. He asked thoughtful questions about her business and listened with genuine interest to her answers. Not once did he mention Vincent or the scandal, though Josephine was certain he must know. "This has been unexpectedly wonderful," Josephine said as they finished their dessert. "But I should get back to my hotel early morning tomorrow." "The Forbes shoot," Daniel nodded. "I read they were featuring you." Outside, as they waited for their respective cars, a soft spring rain began to fall. "Here," Daniel said, offering his jacket. "I'm fine," Josephine replied automatically, the habitual self-sufficiency of single motherhood kicking in. Daniel smiled. "I know you are. That's abundantly clear. But sometimes it's nice to accept help anyway." Something in his gentle perception broke through her carefully constructed defenses. She accepted the jacket, inhaling the faint scent of sandalwood and darkroom chemicals. "I'd like to see you again," he said as her car arrived. "When you're back in New York." Josephine hesitated. Since Vincent, she'd avoided anything resembling dating, pouring all her energy into Lily and the business. "I have a 3-year-old daughter," she said, watching for his reaction. "I like children," he replied simply, "and I suspect I'd like yours particularly." Josephine found herself smiling. "I'll be back next month for meetings." As her car pulled away, she realized she was still wearing his jacket. Instead of feeling anxious about the inadvertent intimacy, she pulled it closer, allowing herself to imagine, just for a moment, what it might be like to let someone new into the fortress she had built around herself and Lily Dot in her hotel room. She texted her mother, who was watching Lily. The response came with a photo of her daughter peacefully sleeping, clutching the stuffed phoenix Josephine had given her on her first birthday. For the first time in 2 years, Josephine fell asleep, thinking not of survival, not of revenge, but of possibility. 3 years later, Josephine stood in the soaring atrium of Rebirth Collective's new headquarters in downtown Philadelphia. The building, a formerly abandoned historic bank, had been transformed under Daniel's architectural guidance into a space that embodied the company's ethos: strength wrapped in beauty, functionality elevated by intention. At 38, Josephine had built Rebirth Collective into a $100 million empire with product lines and major retailers worldwide. Their nonprofit foundation provided postpartum support to underserved women, and their research division, headed by Olivia, was partnering with major universities to study women's health transitions. "Mom, look what Daniel made me." 6-year-old Lily ran across the marble floor, holding a miniature architectural model of their home. the Victorian farmhouse outside Philadelphia that Josephine had purchased last year. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Josephine said, kneeling to examine the perfect details. "Why don't you show Aunt Rachel while I finish my call?" Daniel caught her eye from across the room, where he was instructing the installation crew on lighting placement for the grand opening gala that evening. They shared a private smile, the communication of partners who had built something precious together, both professionally and personally. Her phone buzzed with a message from her assistant. "Mr. Reed's representative is here." Josephine sighed. After years of legal harassment and undermining attempts, Vincent had finally requested a meeting. His company had been struggling since a series of poor investments and a sexual harassment scandal involving Natalia, now his ex-wife. She found him waiting in the conference room, looking older than his 43 years. The arrogance was still there, but diminished, like an expensive suit that no longer fit quite right. "Vincent," she said coolly, remaining standing. "You have 15 minutes. He gestured to the chair opposite him. "You might want to sit for this, Joe." "Josephine," she corrected. "Only friends call me Joe." He nodded, accepting the boundary. "I'll be direct. Nexus Dynamics needs a partner for our new wellness technology division. Rebirth Collective is the obvious choice." Josephine stared at him, incredulous. "You're proposing a business partnership? After everything?" "This is business, not personal," Vincent said, sliding a prospectus across the table. "Your company's valuation has tripled in the last year. Mine is struggling. It's a logical merger." "Merger?" Josephine laughed. "You mean acquisition. You want me to save your company." Vincent's jaw tightened. "The board is considering replacing me as CEO. This partnership could secure my position." The irony was almost too perfect. The man who had tried to erase her, who had believed she would disappear into obscured motherhood, was now asking for her help. "I spent years believing I wanted revenge," Josephine said quietly. "I imagined this moment you needing something from me that I could refuse. And now?" Vincent asked, a hint of the old charm in his voice. "Now I realize revenge was too small a goal," she replied. "What I've built isn't about you. It never was." She stood, gathering the untouched prospectus. "Rebirth Collective isn't for sale or partnership, but I will have my team send over a list of female-owned investment firms that might consider helping Nexus Dynamics, provided you implement the workplace changes they'll require." Vincent's face hardened. "You're making a mistake, Josephine. This could have benefited both of us." "No," she said with certainty. "This would have benefited you while compromising everything I've built." She checked her watch. "Your 15 minutes are up." As security escorted him out, Josephine didn't feel the satisfaction she had once imagined. Instead, she felt something far more valuable: indifference. Vincent Reed no longer had the power to hurt her. That evening, as hundreds of guests filled the atrium for the headquarters' grand opening, Josephine stood on the mezzanine overlooking the crowd, Rachel beside her with champagne flutes. "To the woman who built an empire from ashes," Rachel toasted. "To all of us who built it," Josephine corrected, including Olivia and the growing circle of women who had joined their executive team. Daniel appeared with Lily, who was proudly showing off her new dress, a miniature version of Josephine's emerald gown. "Speech time, Ms. Empire Builder," he said, kissing her cheek dot as Josephine addressed the crowd. Telling the story of Rebirth Collective's journey, she didn't mention Vincent or the scandal. Those were merely the circumstances that had forced her transformation, not the story itself. "We named this company Rebirth for a reason," she concluded, "because every ending contains the seeds of a new beginning. Every loss creates space for something unexpected. And sometimes, when the life you carefully built burns to the ground, what grows in its place is stronger, more authentic, and more beautiful than what came before." Later that night, after Lily was asleep and Daniel had wrapped his arms around her in their quiet bedroom. Josephine thought about the long, difficult path that had led her here to this home, this family, this life she had created from nothing. Happy? Daniel asked, sensing her reflection. Beyond that, she answered truthfully, whole. Outside their window, the garden Daniel had designed was coming alive in early spring, new growth pushing through soil that had lain dormant through winter's hardship. In nature, as in life, destruction was never the end of the story. It was merely the necessary clearing for something far more magnificent to rise.